Hello, and welcome to another episode of Raise the Bar. I'm your host, Troy Haines, and it has been a couple weeks since I've done one of these. My last episode was with Virginia Scardanzin, the Italian pole vaulter. We just put that one out on YouTube. What a great guest, full of energy, and wow, what a great technician as a pole vaulter. Amazing vaulter, and an Olympic hopeful. She's an Olympic hopeful. So that was our last one. And in the meanwhile, I have not yet been able to get another guest to help us discuss how to raise the bar. So I just wanted to go on a rant. And first of all, I just wanted to say that Raise the Bar is being brought to you by nobody still, but we are ever hopeful to get sponsors to the podcast and more interest as we continue to try to grow awareness of all the jumps, the high jump in particular, but long, triple, and pole vault, and just track and field in general. This is an Olympic year, and we are moving rapidly towards the Olympic trials here in the U.S. and Olympic trials all over the world, and then the Olympics. So, the spectacle that is the Olympics, that what happens once every 4 years, the amazing drama and stories that go with, people spending hours and hours and days and weeks and months and years of their lives to train for this event that happens only once every 4 years. It's pretty amazing. I fell in love with the Olympics when I was a kid. In 1972, I was 8 years old, and I watched Olga Korbut and the Russian gymnasts, and fell in love with gymnastics, and then saw a little bit of boxing, a lot of swimming. That was the Olympics of Mark Spitz, won 7 gold medals. He was like the older version of what was the other guy that won all the gold medals? My brain is blanking. I can see him right in front of me. But anyway, he was the early version of the gold medal machine swimmers. And so that was real big in 72. And a little bit of boxing, a little bit of wrestling. I was really young. I didn't understand what's going on yet. But in 76, I was 12, and I got to see the Olympics from Montreal. Got to see Dwight Stone's high jump, got to see, more boxing, a lot of great boxing. Gosh, the Olympic team that year had some future world champions, Sugar Ray Leonard, both of the Spinks brothers, Michael and Leon. I'm dating myself here, of course. But they both were heavyweight champions. Michael Spinks became both light heavyweight and heavyweight champ. And then he had the dubious distinction of getting knocked out by Mike Tyson in like a minute and a half and staring into space and retiring because his brains were gone. Who else? Guy named Paul, I want to say Paul Gonzalez. I think he was a lightweight, right from here in LA. And he was a gold medalist, and I believe he had a pro career. I don't know that if he ever became a world champ or not, but Sugar Ray did. The Spinks brothers did. Leon Spinks beat Muhammad Ali, and then became part of that trivia question when Muhammad Ali was the first guy that ever lost the title 3 different times and then reclaimed the title. So that was, I believe, his third reclaiming of the title that he had lost when he lost to Leon. So great boxing, great track and field. That was the Bruce Jenner Olympics that he won the decathlon in. I mentioned Dwight Stones, who was favored to win the gold, got third in the rain in Montreal because they left the roof uncovered. And, nobody likes jumping on a wet surface. So when he didn't win, Dwight promptly broke the world record like a week or so later, just to reestablish himself as a number one. So yeah, just always. Unfortunately, in 1980, we didn't go because we boycotted political stuff. And then 84 was the Great Games in LA. We had Carl Lewis and 4 golds, and, gymnastics with Mary Loretton, and great swimming as usual. And, it never ceases to, satisfy me, for sure. I'm a junkie when it comes to it. I'd like to have them every year. But, I've seen some amazing things in my lifetime that correspond with the Olympics. So On top of that, there's our great opportunity to grow the sport, because this is when the world's attention focuses on track and field in more than a, cursory couple glance away, but we're, on the big screen, lots of corporate money, lots of people watching that might not normally watch, that kind of stuff. So we're coming up on that. And then, of course, this time of year for me as a coach is very busy. Most of the action is the high school level. My high school clients down here in the Southland are finishing up and getting ready to try to go to state. And so last week we just had all the CIF, which are a certain group of schools in the Southland. They just had their league finals. And out of those guys, the first place guy is always guaranteed, guy or girl is guaranteed a place at CIF prelims, whatever division. There's 4 divisions, so 1, 2, 3, or 4 based on size of school, strength of school sometimes. And so we got 4 levels. We got all these different leagues in there. If you're a first place guy, you go automatic. Second and third can go, but they have to meet a certain standard. So if you have a really crappy league, if you're a guy high jumper and you won at, let's say 4.2, really bad height, right? You get to go to prelims, but the other 2 guys wouldn't, because their mark didn't beat yours and your mark wouldn't reach a certain standard. So you have to beat a standard. But let's say you have a really good league and you have 6 really good high jumpers, and the first 3 guys all jump 6'4", and you go, well, they all get to go. And then what about the 4th guy that jumped 6'4", but he had a miss? Well, his jump would also make the standard that they have set. So it depends on which division you are and what the standards are, but you can, qualify and you go to the next round. The next round, they do a weed out process. Anywhere from 30 to 40 something different jumpers can show up. And, they will cut that field down to 9. Sometimes plus ties, depends on how high it goes. But usually it's a real easy way to just go, oh, you guys are the 9 best. We'll see you next week. So that's CIF prelims cut from, say, 30 to 40 down to 9. Then the next week is CIF finals for all 4 divisions. When I was still in high school, they used to throw us all back together, but now they keep you separate in your 4. So you'd only have 9 guys to jump against. So they jump all 4 divisions separately. Takes a couple hours still, with those 9, maybe an hour and a half. And then they will take the top, I think it's the top 9 still, 9 plus ties, but there's also some automatics there. So they don't want to leave anybody out who's jumping really well and gets capped by a number. So I believe the automatic qualifier for the Masters meet is 6'6". And then when you do that, you get to go to the Masters. And then if you also jump 6'6" at the Masters, you get to go to state. So I do remember one year, 2019, I was fortunate enough to have 3 different clients make it to state that year. That was Jack Weissman and Kyle Jenkins and Aiden Garnett. And so they all went to state. But at CIF finals, there was 12 guys that qualified for the Masters, and the state qualifier that year was only 6'4", and every single guy except 1 out of the 12 made 6'4". So we sent 11 guys up to state, which was pretty cool. And so that's the way that works. And then when you get to state, there's another 36 guys there. They always throw you back in a big pool. So you get San Diego guys, you get the LA City guys. This is my first time having any LA City clients in the business now for the last 7 years, I think, at least. And it's the first time I've ever gotten any LA City clients. So it's a smaller group. They only send 3. San Diego sends a bunch. Then Middle California sends some up there. And then there's also Northern California. So throw them all back in the pond again. You come up with 18 from up there, 18 from down here is 36-ish. And then they jump them off on a Friday and they take the top 9 or 12 again. I forget the numbers. You basically just keep jumping until they tell you you're out or you're in. And again, the last time I went was 2019. I've had other clients there, but just haven't gone. COVID was weird. So the last time I remember going was Jack's year with Kyle and the famous Tyler Cash, and who else went? Aiden. And so they jumped, I believe the first day it only took like 6'5" to qualify. And that was the one where Tyler Cash qualified dead last or second to last. I think there was a five-way jump off for the last two spots. And Tyler had only jumped 6'4", I think, and had missed at 6'6". So when they moved it down, they took one more jump at 6'6", and I think everybody missed. When they moved it to 6'5", Tyler made it. And I remember thinking at the time, I go, who's going to jump better tomorrow? And I thought it might be Tyler just because he was so thin. He was 5'10", like a $130. And I thought it probably wouldn't take him much to recover. You know, I was 6'3", 180, pretty heavy for a jumper, and I never came back the second day anything like that. So he jumped 6'4" and then got a 6'5" qualifier, jumped 6'10" the next day and came in second. So that is how the CIF runs work. So we've got that going on, the CIF and the city run to the state. We've got a new website out. You should go to, if you enjoy listening and you enjoy me on Instagram, you can go to skyhighandflyjumplab.com and see the new website. We have a bunch of material there for you. Services offered include, I'll do video analysis of jumps and recommend both technique changes and exercises to strengthen drills, training to get better at whatever particular, thing we find out that you're doing wrong. We also do virtual training. I've had clients here in the US from Louisiana, from, I've done video analysis, gone to different places. I've had the virtuals go from either Louisiana all the way up to Seattle and also in Indiana. I have one client from India. You may have seen Mahika's work. And so that happens on a semi-regular basis. And then, some video analysis from people in various countries, which is always fun. So those services are there. We also offer, summer camps and clinics and private training sessions and group training sessions. Try to be there for everybody. We also will be having the Zoom classes that I did it's almost 2 years ago now. Which were started during a fall of boredom for me when I wasn't really training a lot of people. Fall is kind of a weird time. And I started putting out Zoom classes and those did okay. So those are available now for download. You can subscribe and do that. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on here at Sky High and Fly Jump Labs, which is me. And then Barbara Pachoka from Canada does a lot of work for me on my podcasts and web stuff. The web browser, my website. I'm such a dinosaur. And she helps me a ton with all that stuff. So thank you again. I don't get to say thanks to Barb enough because she's so busy. It's hard to catch her to tell her thanks. But and anyway, there we are. We get all the way back to raise the bar. And what do I want to talk about today? So what I really want to talk about is, and I've managed to coin a new phrase, which I like as a cue for the jumpers. And that is, what is the high jump in its essence? And that is, I call this phrase is go from tall to small when you're horizontal. And what I mean by that is, I tell my jumpers all the time is the whole game that we're playing in the high jump is to take as much speed as you can handle. And some athletes can handle more than others. When you're running fast, you get ready and you jump. You're going to jump, hopefully, vertically. Straight up would be nice, okay? If you are running in a direction towards the bar, when you jump straight up, you will not come straight down. Physics will dictate that you travel a little bit in some kind of a little parabolic orbit where you go up and come down. And it mathematically will look pretty much the same on both sides, except with the pit interrupting your fall on the other side. If you've ever seen a picture of a missile being shot into the air and coming down to the ground, it's a perfect little parabolic orbit. So we're doing the same game. If you're going slow enough now, if you're going at 0, you can jump straight up and come down the same spot. And to a certain extent, you can handle maybe even some other speeds. If you're strong enough to counteract some forces and speed, you may be able to stop yourself, go straight up and come straight down. But what I tell all of my jumpers, from tall to small, my jumpers can be 5 years old and they can be 80 years old. They can be very tall. They can be very, very short. But anyway, what I tell them is if they're running fast enough that, I have a kid today we're working with, Orlando Zepeda from St. Paul, and he's a 22-foot long jumper. So I said, when you're running really fast and you jump up in the air, you're both going up and you're kind of still long jumping all the way into the pit, right? You realize you can travel quite a ways while you're in the air. It's like watching Jumpman Westner, one of my favorites, the 7'5" 3/4 guy from Florida now, who can dunk from past the free throw line, right? Which is quite a ways away, and 10 feet up still, right? So that's a long jump and a high jump and a lot of air in between. So the name of the game is hitting vertical, and then you're going to drift for a while. Okay, now if we run and jump straight up in the air and refuse to let ourselves fall over on our backs, which is what kind of happens in the high jump, right? If you're a basketball player, you don't do that. You reach up with both hands, you dunk the ball, you swat at the ball that somebody else shot. You're doing something, where you're going to come down and land on both feet. So when that happens, you don't do what we call rotating around on the bar. If you see the figure behind me, you can see that he's going overhead first. And most of us know that he'll kind of flip over towards his back. So for that to happen, I have to actually swing up from a tilt up through vertical and then go across. Now I tell all the jumpers that I work with that your head should start way behind your foot, both behind and to the left or the right, depending on which direction you're coming from. And then your foot will stop you when you put it on the ground and your body will start to swing up. Okay. Now, ideally we swing straight up and we come off the ground. Now, a lot of people know already that, hey, that doesn't happen with me. I'm tilted towards the bar as my leg is on the ground. Some people, their leg is swinging straight up and their body is tilted. Their upper body is tilted at an angle. So always trying to fix that. But, if I swing across and go like this, now what starts to happen to any long body, which we're represented in a lot of ways like a stick figure. So if I'm running up and I'm leaning back, I put my foot on the ground and I'm acting like a long stick, I will hit and swing up and start to spin. Okay. As soon as my head goes past my feet, okay, when I go from purely vertical, right? As soon as I swing past, I'm going to start to spin. Now, this brings in a principle called conservation of angular momentum. When I have a really long thing and it's going to spin, if I just try to spin something that's long, the longer it is, the slower it seems to spin. Maybe you go, oh, well, maybe it's weight related. Yeah, it takes energy to spin something heavy, sure. But if, something grabs a pole that's 90 feet long in a hurricane and starts spinning it, it's going to spin. But if you make that thing smaller, it's going to spin faster. That's where we get the conservation of angular momentum thing. So if I tell my guys, hey, I want you to get as tall as you can getting off the ground. Okay, arms go up, your knee comes up, you go up straight. While you're still going up straight, it doesn't really matter how long you are. Okay, but as soon as you start to try to spin, how long you are will affect your position over the bar, which is why these guys are going to start coming down. I'm going to get smaller again. I want to go from tall to small. So I tell people they can either bring their hands back down towards their hips, right? Which you can see this guy's doing behind me. His arms are up here and he's swinging them back towards his hips, right? Or you can reach behind you. Some of you have seen these guys now. Bondarenko does this. Many single armers will stop the arm and bring it back, but a lot of them now will just connect their lead arm to their drive knee foot. Bondarenko does it with great aplomb, I would call it. At 6'8" and really long arms, I'm here to guess he can touch close to 10 feet just standing there. So when he runs and jumps off the ground, his body's really long. If he stayed like that, no matter how good he is at jumping, he wouldn't spin over things very well, especially like 7'11", right? So how does he spin? Well, he connects his arm to his foot and he gets into a tight little ball that will start to spin. So for examples of this, if you guys are watching gymnastics or diving and someone does backflip, if they tuck, they spin quicker. If they go full layout, they spin slower. You see it both in diving and gymnastics and other sports that involve that. But if I want to quicken up, I shorten up. Okay, shorter levers move faster, longer levers move slower. Okay, so if I've got a long lever, and everybody usually sees high jumpers and they go, hey, look at that guy, he's 6'6". I bet he's a high jumper. Hey, look at that guy, he's 5'2". He's probably just some short little guy. He doesn't do anything like high jumping. It's not always true, right? But you're thinking in your head, I would like some tall, skinny basketball players or volleyball players or somebody who already knows how to jump, so I can teach them how to spin in the air and they'll be great. So if I can get them tall, great, but I can't leave them tall. Because what else do you do when you're in air? Notice what this guy's doing here behind me. His knees are swinging up to about a 90-degree angle. Why is that nice? Well, when I put that there, the bar can be right behind there. And there I am at my 90-degree angle and everything's wonderful. Okay, so when we see that, then we have what we need and we're starting to get in a good position. We start tall. As we start to spin, we start to get smaller, okay? And there's all kinds of things that happen. Our hands come down, our knees swing up. If one knee is up and the other one's down, we're gonna pop that hip maybe. We might throw our head back to try to get our head closer to our heels, which this guy behind me seems to be doing also. You see that move there. His head is getting closer to his heels. So let's share screen just for a second and we will see if we can't find where am I desktop? I'm going to look now. I don't need Zoom anymore. I need my files. Podcast videos. Let's see if we've got anybody here at hand. I might have to edit something in later, personal docs. Let's see how Dora's layout looks. Let's see now. Here's Dora Dormalin. She is very fast. A single armor, boom. And if you watch, she just rides her knee up and over. So her layout position is kind of interesting, but she's probably as tall as she's going to get here. Okay, so you see the arm going up and you see her toe still on the ground and she's stretched out. Her arm is above her head. She's pretty long here. Okay, watch the takeoff leg. See it swing up to match the other one right there. We've gone from one leg straight and one knee up to, it almost looks like both knees up. She's sitting in the chair. And then her feet are closer to her head than they were before, simply because she's swinging her knees up. If you're standing straight up with your arms up and you're touching 7 feet tall, like I know I can, if I bring my arms down, I'm back to 6'3". If I drop down to my knees by swinging my feet up, I'm about 5'2" or so. I got really long legs. So when I get down on my knees, I'm real short. So when that happens here, you can see this is the equivalent of her being on her knees. Her head and her feet are getting closer back together. Not crazy about the arms way out here. Would like to have them tucked in on the hips, but straight out is better than straight up. So she's kind of getting them back here, okay? And we'll start to spin quicker as a result. Now you notice here, she lands up on her shoulders and her feet flop over. So we would call that good rotation. I like to see where her head and her feet are on the same level here, that we're still in a high arch. So let's see if we can find another video that looks a little bit better. What do we got here? Okay, here's Dora again. And boom, boom. Notice the nice lean back angle here. Really pretty sweet. She's very close to the bar. This is one thing I would like to fix for her. As she comes through here to toe off, you can see that her arms are up and they look like she's driving them across there. My guess is they're getting pulled across because she's so fast. So she's trying to go vertical, but they're kind of swinging across. But she is pretty tall there, right? So again, what does she do? As she continues to go up and over now, this is where I think we should start the layout when we're getting closer to horizontal. So notice she pops her hip here early while it's below the bar. But she's so fast, she just continues to rotate up and over and then still get some good rotation here. When her head and feet are on the same level, her knees are up and her glutes are about the same level. Like to see the hips still elevated here. She gets tremendous rotation because of her attack speed. And she is not throwing her head back. Like you see, some people will literally crank their head back. Hers is just going across there because she's moving so fast. I haven't seen very many people attack with the same speed. Notice her cycling is very good. She's really running through this curve and boom. And notice here with that hand and foot, she does reach that first arm and it does look like it's kind of down and reaching a little bit for the heel. It's not as marked as some others. Okay. So these are all examples of things that happen while we are trying our best to go from tall to small. Okay. Arms extend and then we get them back, or arms extend and we connect one arm for sure. I've never seen anybody connect both arms yet. I've seen it in backovers. I've had some super bendy athletes of mine try that. Kevin Schmidt was very good at that. It's just like doing that back bend you see everybody do, that high bridge, right? That exercise to work on your layout position. I said, hey, why don't we try that in the air one time? Works great. If you hold it long enough, you can actually spin around and land on your stomach. That'd be awesome. Hard to get practically, okay? But so the spin dynamic is, again, as I'm going straight up, get all the straight up you can get at high speed, okay? And you may not have to get your arms that high to do that. I tend to think that your arms can get higher overhead if you're moving slower. And they kind of have to get higher overhead if you're moving slower to get you that air, unless your legs are just really strong. But ideally, it's a little bit of both. So there's a trade-off. I go up, but as I'm going up, I can then ditch them because they're not going to give me any more air once I'm done pushing off the ground, right? As soon as your toe leaves the ground, you've become kind of a free-bodied entity. And I tell people, you are now imitating a bird. You are literally in flight. We don't fly very well or very long, but depending on how hard we hit off the ground and the angles and the forces and everything, we can be up in the air for a little bit. So as we're going into flight and we're going straight up, you can be as tall as you want. Now that flight, that vertical flight phase doesn't last very long for jumpers. Most people don't even hit vertical. I don't know if I ever did, especially going faster. I jumped against two guys that I remember that hit vertical all the time. Lee Balkin used to drive me crazy, my teammate, 2 years at UCLA. I don't remember him ever not hitting vertical. He was one of the best I've ever seen at leaning into his curve and coming out of it and going straight up, literally. And the other guy was Sotomayor, who I had the unbelievable blessing to get to jump against about a month after he broke the world record. We jumped 245. He came over here, jumped at UCLA, and I've never seen anybody hit vertical like him. He went 7.2, 7.4, 7.6, 7.8, four of the best jumps I've ever seen, 5 or 6 inches of clearance on everyone, and actually kicked 7.10 off with his heels when he was, again, like 4 inches over. I've never seen anything like it. And he would literally stop and go straight up. And he was unreal strength wise. But, most of us don't do that. Most of us are going to blow through a little bit. So if you do blow through a little bit, guess what? I need to be, this is important, farther away from the bar. Because if I'm not going straight up and I've tilted my takeoff, if you're like a rocket and you're tilted towards the bar, you're going to get to the bar quicker as you tilt and point towards it. If you're tilted straight up, you may go up and then start to arch over a little bit because of your momentum, but you're going to have much longer time to figure things out. That's the beauty of hitting vertical. For those of you that are striving for ways to get better, I think too many people don't understand curve mechanics. They don't understand that they can get more air. And when I say more air, I mean literally more time in the air. If I have more time in the air, I must be going up longer. It makes sense. I can be going up longer and going farther like a long jumper also, okay? The long and the high jump can be kind of similar sometimes if you watch them, like what's the difference? Well, one, I'm really trying to go far, but they still have to go up to go far. And some of the really good high jumpers, you'd be surprised how far they do go when they jump. As they go up, they can still travel quite a far ways also. It'd be fun to do some actual measurements on some of these guys to see how far they long jump while they're high jumping instead of the other way around. But the game is, again, if I don't go straight up, I need to be farther away from the bar to buy myself some time. Otherwise, I will be forced, and I do mean forced, into bad habits. What are those bad habits? Throwing my head back early, dropping my drive knee early, trying to manipulate myself over the bar because I'm too close and I'm going to get to the bar quicker. because both being too close and tilted towards the bar takeoff. So, you know, like I tell my jumpers this all the time. I said, we can really try to fix either one of those problems. Better is both. If I can get farther away and convert straighter up, I'm going to get more time to get up to my peak height. If I can get up to my peak height and not be vertical when I'm doing it, but be horizontal when I'm doing it, then my layout is going to be much quicker. I don't have to. You'll see people say this all the time. I hear it from the younger jumpers. Oh, if I could have just held it longer, if I could just thrown my head back and held that position longer. I'm here to tell you that if you're holding that position for a long time, you're starting too early. You're literally way too early, okay? Because if I'm going straight up and I'm not even at the bar plane yet, let's say I'm 3 feet off the bar. If I'm still going up and I've just left the ground vertical, I throw my head back then, I'm still going to go up and do the wrong things and still not get close enough to the bar. I'd be in better shape there, farther out going straight up, than I would be if I was closer and converting towards the bar. But either way, I want to go up and let my momentum take me over where my head is no longer dealing with what I call the vertical plane of the bar, okay? I do not want to throw my head back towards the bar or be moving that way by my own effort. Like, you notice me tossing my head back, okay? I don't want to do that. I want my velocity to do that. Okay, I want to keep this move. I want to hold on to my head so that it goes up, starts to fall over. And then when I throw my head, I can do that move horizontal, going down. So when my head goes down, my hips come up and then I start to spin. Okay, it's a lot different that way. And I'm going to show you another example here. Let's share screen. And I had this guy sitting there earlier, I'm pretty sure. And where did I put this? That's that one. Let's see, where did I go? I went to recents. Dora, who else is on here? Enough Time to Work. This is one of my favorites. Okay, so I do not know who this young gentleman is. I think the bar is at about 2 meters 10, which is a respectable jump. And I will show, first of all, that he's pretty far out here. He's not way far out, but he's pretty far out, and he's got a good lean back. Now, when he comes through, does he hit perfect vertical? Not so much. There's his leg going straight, and his upper body, you can see, is a little tilted towards the bar. His shoulders are tilted towards the bar, right? So he's not hitting perfect vertical. So it's a good thing he's farther out here, because watch, it gives him some time to keep going up. And notice that he did not throw his head back. He moves that way because he's blowing through vertical. Okay, he is going, it looks like it's 199. Is that right? I can't tell in the distance there what that thing says. But anyway, he's going up and he's going over because of his speed only. Now you'll see the move. Now as his head goes through the vertical plane of the bar, you can see it's past now. He's actually gone past the plane of the bar a little bit. Watch now where his head goes. His head starts going down. Now, is that possible if he throws his head back farther on this side? Yes, it is. If you hold it long enough, it will continue to go. But it seems to me that he waited till about here. And here, notice where he's at. He's a lot closer to horizontal than he is to vertical, right? In his positioning. So he doesn't throw it back now. He's waiting. It looks to me almost like he's looking down the bar. His head's not back yet. Where does the head go back? Right about there. And it's not even cranked. But I would say, I like this position here. Notice his head and his feet are on the same level. His hands are getting closer to his hips. His hips are still up and both legs are swung back into that little 90-degree angle. So he's going to spin pretty efficiently here. Notice the rotation. He lands high up on his shoulders and back tucks and out. Okay. And so again, and notice also, where does that knee go? He just leaves it up there. No need to pop that hip as the head goes back. So he's acting more like a single armor with that action than a double. A lot of guys will pull their hands down to their hips, throw their heads back, and pop their hip all at the same time. He's just a knee rider, which I like because he rides it way up and over the bar. So But again, this is a decided time buyer, right? I got time because I'm farther away. I can wait until I'm getting closer to horizontal. Notice that his head seems like it goes way past the bar here before it starts coming down. And that's the key move. And I call that one time enough to work. And that is that demonstration of, being far enough away from the bar and then, working the head down instead of back. So when I say the term back, I mean your head is moving horizontally towards a vertical plane of the bar. What I would like to see in more people's jumping is your head working the opposite of vertically, but you're going horizontally towards the vertical plane. I know it sounds it's crazy. Okay, let's edit this as we go. If I throw my head back horizontally towards the bar, which is a vertical plane, I need to go one other plane over. So that is a horizontal plane that I say is just take the ground and rise the plane of the ground up to where the bar is. Okay, that horizontal plane is the one that we want to break with our heads. Does that make sense? I have to get my head past the first plane in order to deal with the second plane. Okay. And ideally, if you do the math and the physics of it, there has to be some room for the head to go down, the hips to come up. Your distance between your head and your hips is pretty set. Your spinal column is locked from your skull down to your hips by the number of ribs and vertebrae and everything else you have lined up on top of each other. And unless it's really, really flexible, especially through your rib cage, guess what? Those aren't. Those are kind of limited by your ribs. They don't let them bend as much as they do your lower spine and your lumbar, right? Lumbar spine will kind of rotate a little bit more, kind of bend more, flex more. The ribs are a little bit stiffer, so I can't get that much closer, when I'm doing that. So when your head is just past the bar, it's probably about time where it can start to go down, because all that time you're still going to be moving across. And there is a time lag. So if you're waiting until your head is way past the bar, then you may already be, too late to throw your head down, pop your hips up in time to get them over the bar. So it does seem to happen really, really quickly, even when you do wait for it. If that makes sense. You gotta wait for the right moment to really go for that move. But in my estimation, I would say 90% of jumpers are going into their layout position too early, just way too early. Either by, and this is a whole nother topic of discussion. I've had some long talks with myself and the athletes. I'm sure for them it's longer, but I'm like, look, you have got to learn how to wait, because the bar just keeps going up. I don't think you can arch your way over another couple heights higher. You know what I mean? If I throw my head back earlier and hold it longer, does that mean I'm going to jump higher? I don't think so. I think the way you're going to jump higher is to run faster, to get a better curve, to harness more power, more speed, more velocity into a great drive knee, and then wait and ride that knee up and pop your hips and do your layout way later than you did even 2 inches before. Now, what's the difference in time between 2 inches on one jump and another? Probably a couple tenths of a second, probably a little less than that, maybe just a tenth. I don't know. You have to run faster and drive your knee more, and you got to wait longer. It makes sense, right? If you go from 6 feet to 6'6", if you go from 6 feet to 6'6" to 7, you go from 7 feet to 7'6". 7'6" used to be an awesome jump. Now it seems like the under 20s can do that. So you've got to jump over 7'6" up to 8 feet. 6 inches is a lot in the high jump. And how much time does it take to rise that extra 6 inches? It's not very long in real terms. It's not like a second, I'm sure. Might seem like it. Okay, to us, when we're amped up and moving really quickly, I think sometimes it seems like the whole thing can take 10 seconds when most high jumpers are active for about 4.5 to 5. So anyway, long rambling diatribe later. We're waiting longer before we throw our heads back. We're fighting for vertical. Okay. The whole discussion was tall to small when horizontal. Okay, and I'm rhyming all those at the end. So I want to go from a tall center of mass. That means I'm getting as vertical, as straight up and down as I can. As soon as I start to rotate across, I need to start getting smaller. So go from tall to small. How do I do that? Retract my arms, bring them down to my hips, or connect them to my feet, one or the other, okay? Then I want to try to get my head as close to my feet as possible. If I have a very bendy back, thank God you're one of those lucky ones. I was not that way. So I'm gonna have to swing my knees up and try to arch like crazy, whatever I can there. But the smaller I get, the faster I'll spin. And the less time I have to stay in that terrible position. Because those of you that have tried this, when you're sitting there on the ground, everybody's least favorite exercise, it's for your booty, right? Is the booty push, pushing your hips up, right? Nobody likes that position. They like the results of it, the work from it, right? As far as their posterior goes and how they look in a bikini or whatever, or how guys look in their jeans to girls or whatever. But that is not a comfortable position. It compresses your spine. I'm here to tell you on the backside. So if you're doing a lot of arching and all that stuff, also remember to stretch your back out, pull your knees to your chest, roll around a little bit, put your knee up and flop over. There's all kinds of stretches that will decompress that lower back if you're doing a lot of this kind of work. But nobody wants to be in that position for a long time. Some people can. God bless them. I watch some people, they're so bendy. It's amazing. I have found that a lot of people that are gifted with that tremendous flexibility tend to be flexibility people. They kind of arch their way over stuff, instead of jumping over. So, some people aren't super flexible. They might not have fantastic body control, but they can be fast and explosive and just bounce over stuff, and they don't look pretty in the air. And they just go, well, if I'm going to make this, I'm going to run faster and drive my knee up more and I'll just sit over it, and other people, since they're gifted with body control and flexibility and timing, they can kind of figure it out, and they just like, well, I ride my knee to here and then I kind of flex my way over. And it's a great thing to have, but I think sometimes it's tough to pick. I would rather have the person with the bounce and teach them how to lay out than the person that has mastered a layout that's happening what I think is too early, and then have to teach them how to ride their knee longer before they engage. Because here's the next thing. Your body loves patterns and it loves sequences of moves like we do when we dance or whatever. But I mean, if you talk to me and I'm running and I gather and I jump and I go up and I lay out and I come down, that is a learned pattern that your brain really likes to just have stored away somewhere. And when you say, hey, I want to high jump, your brain goes, oh, you mean like this? Blink. And it's like sticking that old tape in the VCR. You know exactly how it's going to play out. It's like, yeah, I run, I jump, I fall over, and I go like this, and I pull. It's like, and that spatial arrangement, where you see the bar coming from and all that. I mean, I've told some people, look, you need to get farther away from the bar, and you can do what you want to them. You can threaten them within an inch of their lives and put a gun to their head and say, you need to take off here. They will take off in that same spot. They will fight and kick and scratch to get back to that spot. And even after you prove to them and you show them the video, go, look, right after you left from this spot that you really wanted to be in, you knocked the bar off with your head or your arm or your knee or something because you were so close to it. It went into the pit and you went up and landed on it and cried for 5 minutes because you broke a rib and have a bruise there now. And still, the next time we came back to practice, you want to jump from that same spot, even though it's too close. And so it's like, oh, why does that happen? Learning patterns, spatial, things. Why is it so hard to change some things? They talk about it all the time. Tiger Woods talked about his swing changes, right? He would go back to certain swings under pressure when you say, oh, that's the way I used to swing 5 years ago, from this certain yardage or whatever. And you're like, well, how does that happen? I'm here to tell you that can happen easily. I've had that happen with all kinds of different movements and thought patterns and whatever, You have to do a lot of work to break a habit and to ingrain another one. And taking off farther from the bar is pretty much the same. I haven't I don't know if I told the story. I've told parts of it before, but working with Jack Wiseman, one of my best high school jumpers who went to UC San Diego, he was a bar crowder for sure, and was so gifted. He was really flexible, really fast, 6'2", 160 pounds, light, quick, trained hard. You know, all these kids, I think now they think they can see me once or twice and they'll learn everything. Jack and I worked together for almost a year straight. And he went from, you know, an occasional 6'6" to 6'10", and he worked really hard for that. And I told him my goal was simply to get him farther away from the bar. And I tell you what, it was a struggle to get Jack farther away from the bar. And he helped me invent a bunch of drills and, you know, find some ways. And I thought I had the whole playbook for people that were closer to the bar. And I'm here to tell you that none of them react the same to any of the same drills of trying to get them farther away. You know, it just depends, you know, how they deal with it. I do think that people that are closer to the bar develop some survival skills, which are absolutely vital. They learn how to drive their knee across and away from the plane of the bar, sometimes better than the ones that are farther away. And so I say, hey, you know, I don't mind crowding if we're crowding you to teach you how to drive your knee up, you know, better. Or for a single armor, being right up on top of the bar plane, if it causes that single arm to go up instead of towards the bar, that's another instance. But, you know, here you're just, it's picking a niche. You're using one thing to get a certain thing, you know, that a high jumper needs. I need jumpers to hit vertical. So what do I do to them? Maybe I shove them closer to the bar. You know, I'm going to teach them how to lean for sure. We're going to do all kinds of different things to try to lean away from the bar and learn how to pull the trigger on a jump when we're doing that. Because a lot of people lean away from the bar as they're getting to it, but when they get there, they'll start to stand back up, and that defeats the whole purpose. So again, tall to small when you're horizontal, okay? And that means I run, I'm leaning back, I try to my best to hit vertical. If I don't quite hit vertical, it's nice if I'm farther out to buy me the time to wait. Everybody gets to horizontal, I'm here to tell you, unless you don't let yourself. If you run and you jump and you go straight up and you don't let yourself spin, you can control your body that way. You do it when you're playing basketball, right? I run up and I jump and I try to grab the rim. I try to do whatever. I don't let myself land on my head. Okay, you can do that. And if you do that in a high jump, you're going to struggle, because that's what we call doing like a scissor kick or a pop-up. And so at a certain point, I have to let myself go, and you will end up at some point. If you watch every high jumper who's a flopper, they will end up horizontal at some point before they go down. It's basically tilt away, vertical up, horizontal over, and then coming down again. And you go through all of those. So in my opinion, you would probably find some people argue with me, and that's okay, because that's what sports talk radio and podcasts are all about. But it's, to me, it makes more sense to wait until I'm almost horizontal to hit that layout than to do it while I'm vertical. So that is it for my rant. My name's Troy Haines. This is Raise the Bar. You've been through another episode. I am rambling on about the stuff that I deal with every day. So my jumpers have heard this in all its different formats and glories and stories. So keep that information with you, use it to your heart's content. And that's the catchphrase is we go from tall to small when we're horizontal. Until next time, this is Troy Haines signing off on another episode of Raise the Bar. Looking forward to talking about the high jump and long jump, triple jump, pole vault, anything to do with track and field more and more here in the future. Can't wait for the Olympics. Again, look us up on YouTube. I have a channel there, Sky High and Fly Jump Lab. We also are very active on Instagram, growing on TikTok, and have a lot of followers coming in, and a new website. And the new website is at skyhighandflyjumplab.com. So until next time, Troy Haines signing off. Have a good one.